In 1999, Morpheus offered Neo a choice between a red pill and a blue pill. In 2018,
and then
this
we want
country
to...
fractured between red and blue.
We're live.
In 2022, I'm here to tell you that if you really want the truth, more voters are neither red or blue.
This is for Facebook. This is for YouTube.
They have no representation, no choice.
So this is the live stream that's going to
They have
Facebook
to
is
choose
here.
between candidates
This is the one that's
chosen by
going to
the red
YouTube.
people or the blue people. I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress as an American.
So here is
as in
YouTube.
red, white, and blue.
Right
I'm a
now there are
veteran,
no
an
viewers.
activist, and a small
It'll tell us
business.
right here.
I'm asking
I'm going to leave a
you
little
join me
message for
in
everybody.
reminding the professional politicians in Congress who their bosses are.
I was going to say thanks for joining us today.
Campaign finance reform, and a verified voter information system. All so we can stop having the best politicians money can buy. It's time to elect a veteran who will work for you,
All right.
no matter what color they want to label you. Please go to
And here is the man
electorsright.com
to...
and learn more. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. Jurassic Park, you thought those little baby dinosaurs were cute until they turned into out-of-control carnivores. That's sort of what happens to government when we elect people based on very expensive advertising campaigns and propaganda. I'm David Esrati. I'm a veteran and a small businessman running for Congress. You don't want professional ad people and pollsters to sway your vote. All those hot-button issues like gun control, abortion, borders are all politicized to stop you from voting rationally. And thinking rationally seems to be in short supply these days. Most Americans have been voting against their own best self-interest for a long time because we've allowed money to buy our leaders. 1 million Americans died in the last 2 years because our leaders couldn't lead. It wasn't that hard. Mask, distance, test, and then vaccinate. In an instant, we had billions to spend on healthcare for COVID, when for years we've been told we can't provide healthcare for everyone equally in this country. That's an unintended consequence of the pandemic. If you think about it, our government can pretty much do whatever it wants, or what the people who buy our politicians tell our leaders to do. We also had a ton of money to prop up businesses. The next thing you know, it turns out that a living wage was not only possible, but necessary. As a small businessman who won't sell you out to corporate interests and lobbyists, I can tell you that it's time to fully understand the consequences of companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google and their effect on small business, and to remind you that small business is the #1 creator of jobs in this country. So this next election, don't trust this ad or any other political ad. Do your homework and think before you vote. It's time to put this ad man in Congress because I know that the best advertising is based on the truth, not the size of the budget or payola. Or you can just vote based on who has the money to buy their way into Congress and live with the consequences. I'm David Esrati, and I approve. Hi, I'm David Esrati, and this is my live stream town hall, and hopefully today we will be on both YouTube and on Facebook, although we'll only be answering questions through the YouTube channel. So if you're not on YouTube and you want to ask questions, jump on over there to Elect Esrati. You should find the live stream. We will figure out how to do both at once later, but we're hoping this is working. And apparently the mic was on during the warm-up.
It was off for like 5 seconds. It was off for most.
Hi. Anyway, thanks Bill, thanks Jennifer. So, you're here. I'm glad you're here. And hopefully some other people will join in because today's topic is going to be kind of interesting. The most important thing you vote on, apparently, isn't who's the president, who's the governor, who's your state congressman, who your state rep is, your state senator. It's all in the hands of a very small group of people, precinct captains of one of two parties, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Because apparently they have the right to turn on and turn off access to the machine that you need to run for office these days. Because both parties have built up data networks. With the Republican Party, it's called Voter Vault. And for the Democratic Party, it's NGP Van. Don't ask me. Voter Action Network, NGP, I don't even remember. Anyways, these are the databases of all the registered voters with everything updated with the precinct lines and the new precincts and everything else, the districts. And it should have information about each voter, how often they voted, what they voted for, how many times they voted, if they're a new register, all those things. And hopefully it has emails and phone numbers, and it has a mobile tool for going door to door that tells you if somebody's been there or not already, to talk to them about a campaign and to ask questions for that campaign and get them filled in. So, if you want to start out running for something and you don't have access to this and you have to build it yourself, like President Obama had to do in 2008, he spent millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, building a system to be able to acquire data, mobile canvas, and make it work. Now, people are saying, well, he built it, isn't it for everybody? Well, he didn't even release that to the party. He kept it to himself. And the thing about these things is they have to be kept up to date. And that's what your local party should be doing, and your local precinct captain should be doing. They should be going out and checking in on everybody at least once a year to make sure your voter registration is active, that everybody in your household that's eligible to be registered is registered, all those things. That's not what happens. But that's what should happen. So, we had 2 primaries this year. We had one in May, which is the one I ran in and won and became the nominee, the candidate for the 10th House seat against Mike Turner. And then we had to have a second one for state rep and state senate. And why did we have to do that? We had to do that because the Republicans ignored the state Supreme Court, not once, not twice, 6 times. 6 times they said no on the redistricting commission. And so what's happened is we still have gerrymandered maps that are not constitutional by the state of Ohio. My district changed slightly, but is still unconstitutional. It's considered a +9 Republican. Of Ohio's 15 districts, I think there are only 4 that lean Democrat, and by a very slim margin. The Republicans have done this purposefully and have been working on it since 2000, when the Koch brothers decided that the way to win things was to gerrymander, and at the state house level, and they were effective as all get out. Now, the former head of the Ohio Democratic Party, a guy named David Pepper, has been railing about this for a while. He says it's, the biggest danger to democracy ever, and he's probably right, because what happened was Republicans now have every seat at the state level. They have a majority that can, a supermajority in both the House Senate and the State House Senate and the State House of Representatives. So they basically can do anything they want. They can overrule the governor, which they recently did. So it is a mess. And my district is gerrymandered and illegal and will be redrawn in 2022. That's not the issue. The issue is access to the tools, access to the donors, access to endorsements, access to everything. And apparently the party has decided that because I wasn't endorsed by my local party, somehow I am not worthy of being the Democratic candidate. Now, let me point out something. They rejiggered the precincts this year kind of quietly, or last year, and they hired the former head of the Board of Elections, who had retired, at his full salary to draw the maps because the current people didn't know how to do it. And this is really a dirty little secret, but the Board of Elections are run by the Democrats and the Republicans, and not by people we elected, these are run by who the party appoints. Okay? And who is the party? Well, I always thought the party was anybody who voted in a primary and voted for a Democrat. That's how you become a Democrat. And if you vote in a primary and ask for a Republican ballot, that's how you become a Republican. You can't go in and register to vote in Ohio and make yourself one or the other. There's no box to tick. There's no anything there to declare your party affiliation. And in fact, the state party's constitution doesn't say anything about membership, things other than you voted as a Democrat in a primary, or you voted as a Republican in a primary, or you asked for an issues only ballot or said, I'm an independent, and let somebody else pick your candidates, okay? So, more people are not registered to either party. They don't partake in the primary elections. Why? Very often there are no choices. You don't get to choose between people. In fact, the party works really hard to do that because, one, primaries are expensive, and two, they might get somebody they don't want, like me. Okay? Now, so first thing they do is they have requirements for turning in petitions, and the petition process manages to filter out all kinds of people. Now, if you're running for Dayton City Commission, believe it or not, you need 500 signatures of registered voters. And even though graphology, the study of handwriting, is illegal in courts of law in this country, it's what everybody who works at the Board of Elections is an instant expert at and can tell whether that signature is a good signature or a bad signature, despite being collected on a clipboard, sometimes in the freezing cold. So, they can eliminate signatures, and in fact, most people at best, working from a list of registered voters, asking for those people, only get 80% of their signatures right. Now, I figured out there is a way, once they disqualify signatures, for you to go back and fix them. In the Montgomery County Board of Elections, they call that the Esrati rule. It's sad, but true. And many times when they've managed to disqualify my signatures or other people's signatures, there were ways to get around it, but they don't help you do that. They don't want you on the ballot. So, I'm on the ballot. I won a 4-way race. The other 3 candidates, they didn't win. I won. I'm the candidate they're stuck with. So you'd think their choices are me or Mike Turner. You'd think they'd realize that even as bad as I am, in their eyes, I'm better than Mike Turner. That's pretty obvious. I mean, he's defending Trump for stealing classified documents and keeping them in his dressing room. He's defending Trump for the insurrection because he didn't vote to impeach him. In fact, Mike Turner voted against veterans and the PACT Act and then claimed he voted for it. We've got a letter that says he did, that he sent to a veteran. Totally untrue. He voted twice against the Affordable Insulin Act. And I've actually talked to people and they say, well, what else was in that? It doesn't matter what else is in that. Do you realize that 1 out of 4 Americans who are diabetic can't afford their insulin and ration it and risk death? Voting Republican kills Americans. I've got a bumper sticker, by the way, that says that. And if you make a donation and ask kindly for one, you might get one. Anyway, so there is this group that is elected that sort of picks who works at the Board of Elections. Now, when I say sort of, it's because I've been a precinct captain for 12 years, and I've never really been asked who we should put on that board or who they should hire. It's done in a back room. If you ever heard of Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed and backroom deals, Dayton, Ohio has them beat. In fact, this is one of the scariest parts about it is we do not allow judges to ever be challenged once they've been in office past their first term. You make it past the first election, you don't get challenged again. If you are going to get challenged, it'll only be the first time you stand for re-election. After that, never again, because we have a deal between the parties. So you don't get a choice to get rid of judges, even if you wanted to. That's not very democratic, but that's how it works. They also have some other deals, like we won't run anybody for prosecutor if you don't run anybody for sheriff. That's how Phil the torturer plumber got to stay in office after torturing people restrained in 7-point restraint chairs by spraying pepper spray in their face point blank. After he said it was only an isolated incident with the first one, I got video of a second one and released it. I didn't get any credit for it, but hey, you'd think that would be enough to bring down the sheriff, but no, the Democratic Party doesn't want to do that. He's hands off because, God forbid, a Republican dares to run for prosecutor. Prosecutors where the real money is made, trust me. He has a whole bunch of lawyers, he pays a bunch of money, and they tithe back to the party. It's very important to have the highest paid people on the payroll that are going to give you back money for your political endeavors. In fact, these parties run more like the Friends and Family program. That's how the woman who's now, I think, the secretary or the vice chair of the Democratic Party, who works at the Board of Elections, at one time hired her brother into the Board of Elections without posting the job. And there was a slight problem with his qualifications because he never filled out a job app either. He was a convicted rapist and registered sex offender, but he got a job until he didn't have a job when it was exposed. And she's still in power. She's still getting a big fat paycheck at the Board of Elections. So, these people, precincts, we have now 361 precincts in Montgomery County. I could be wrong. They filled maybe a third of them. Maybe a little more than that. We'll call it 2/5. I don't know. And of those 2/5 of the people who are precinct captains, who then choose the party chair, we have this slight problem. And this is where it gets really dirty. Guess who runs for precinct captain? People who get paid by politicians in patronage jobs. So you work for the prosecutor. You want to keep your job, you become a precinct captain. And then you vote and do what the party chair, what the prosecutor wants you to do to keep him in his job, and not have any competition ever. It's a little dirty circle, okay? Now, the federal government got smart about this, and they passed something called the Hatch Act. And the Hatch Act says federal employees cannot get involved in partisan politics. So if you work out at the base, if you get a federal paycheck, if you work for the IRS or the EPA, you cannot run for political office because you work for all of us. You can't be a precinct captain. You can't do all these things as a federal employee. So that is what we need to do with the political parties. But it gets worse than that, okay? This is the really interesting part. And I'm looking at what Jen said, that she started working at the polls when she was 18. And at 27, she asked A.J. Wagner with her resume for a job at the Board of Election. And he laughed and told me, "You need to know more party leaders." So let's get back here to being on the Central Committee. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter that you're a Democrat. You're not allowed to speak at the meetings. I was told I was no longer a Democrat because I lost my precinct captaincy to a woman who, by the way, who was on the Dayton School Board but had not voted in a primary yet. She still was an unregistered, an unclassified voter. And the margin that I lost by is weird, but they redrew the district and somehow sent out two mailings for one kind of clean one really nasty one. But I still not sure that election result is legit. I hate to sound like a Trumper, but I'm not positive it's legit. Because one time, a long time ago, I tried looking up my parents' precinct because they lived across the street from me, and they changed the precincts then. And guess what? I couldn't look myself up because I didn't have a middle name. So I looked both my parents up. I knew their names. Dad came up in one precinct, Mom came up in another, and they lived in the same house. That's impossible. The only way that happens is if you have two databases. I wouldn't put it past them because the old party chair's brother is the guy who runs the databases. Now, in the Board of Elections, we have two people on every job. There's a check and a balance. But trust me, these two parties are like this. They have their deals. So it wouldn't be surprising if they were both in on it. But let's suggest all that's legit and everything. How do they have the votes at these party meetings? If you were on the school board or on the city commission, they do a roll call vote and ask you yay or nay. It's the way they do it in the House of Representatives. That's how they do it in the Senate. Nope. We do it by raising our hand or standing up and sitting down. And then they go and count. There's no verification if these people are all actual members or not and eligible to vote. They don't hand out a ballot. They don't mark it. They don't record it. They don't record each individual vote. So nobody can go back and say, yo, Tom Ritchie, he voted no on this. Or Tom Ritchie voted yes on this. Tom Ritchie is one of the major moving forces in the Montgomery County Democratic Party, even though he lives in Florida most of the time. He's also a thug. And if you want to see that, you can go look at the last Democratic Party meeting where at the tail end, he waved over a guy to have a conversation with him who accused the labor union of backing Phil Plummer. And they went and they started talking. I kept the film running, and one of Tom's little buddies tried to get around Tom and actually start a fight with Casey. You'll have to watch it to believe it, but it's all there in living color. That video's got about 750 views, which is incredible for a party meeting and that runs about an hour and a half. It's been seen at the national level. It's an embarrassment to the party. And these are the people I'm supposed to get an endorsement from. So what happens now is the people who sit in the back of the room are all the people that work for various politicians, and they're being watched. So they vote as a block. And all they have to do is have half plus one to overrule the rest. And the rest aren't as organized as they'd like to be. Part of the problem is there's a woman named Jocelyn Reinert, who's on the Dayton School Board, who thought she was going to be the next party chair, but she didn't manage to get enough people on the ballot. Their petitions were insufficient. Again, the Board of Elections has a lot of control on these. It's sad when you've got a bunch of people who can't fill out a simple form to get on the ballot. There's something wrong with the form. There's something being done intentionally to keep people off the ballot. And even once you do get elected, do they notify you? Do they put their meeting notice times up and when the next meeting is on their website? Ah, hell no. They don't even have a list of who their candidates are. It's kind of like run by children. That's the Montgomery County Party. Greene County's not much better. They got about 150 precincts, and they got 53 or 54 people nominated, and they're pretty divided too. Clark County is kind of different. One, there are practically very few Democrats there, and their website doesn't tell you much at all. They don't have any meeting notices. They don't have minutes. They don't have any of the things you would think of that you would have there. So I have really 3 county parties to talk to and get a recommendation from, because I'm running in all 3 of their districts. And here's the thing. The party wants to endorse in primaries. They want to tell you, these 200 people, most of whom will work downtown in the county building or work in city jobs, they want to tell you who to pick. That's what an endorsement is. And they want their unions to do the same thing. They don't want you to actually choose. They don't want you to research. They don't want you to know. They want you to vote for people they can control. And sorry, folks, that ain't me. So I finally decided to, push comes to shove, ask them why I wasn't on the state website. And I got a bogus letter from a guy named Bill DeMora, who's their secretary. Chairman's too busy. And he makes accusations of all kinds of things. I've harassed Democratic candidates. Well, the guy who's now the party chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Party, before he was elected to school board 4 years ago, he went out and was doing school board business before he had been sworn in. That was illegal. But since the Democrats own the prosecutor, nothing happened to him. I filmed it. That morning that he was going to be sworn in at 5:30 at night, he was having a task force meeting with Jeff Mims, current mayor of the city of Dayton, to discuss the closing of some elementary schools in Dayton. I filmed it. I was told I couldn't film it. I was told I said I wouldn't stop. It's a public meeting. I have every right. So they shut the meeting down. You can watch all of this. You go to Esrati.com and look for Goodbye Sunshine. They finally did have their little meeting, and they had it open begrudgingly. And then they went on a bus tour where they went stop to stop to stop and inspected school buildings. I wanted to film it. No, you can't because there are kids here. I wanted to audio record it. No, you can't because we'll somehow voice print these kids and know who they are. It's interesting. John Gower, who worked for the city and long term, and Jeff Mims refused to go in the buildings. They stayed outside because they knew the law was being broken. And I told them all as they walked in and walked out. I tried to take it to court, but Judge Dick Skelton, who used to be a Democrat and is now a Republican, pretty much made an embarrassment out of me with my no legal skills through saying we were going to have a hearing and then never having the hearing. And me not getting it on the record, the preliminary discussions. I don't make that mistake anymore, Judge Skelton. And one of these days I'm going to find somebody to run against you and will replace you. So, they claim that I harassed Democratic candidates. Well, I ran against Joey Williams. I lost. And then Joey Williams was on the take, accepted bribes from an FBI informant. And then the FBI let him stay in office for 3 years while he made tapes. And then they never prosecuted anybody else but black people. Because, guess what? They gave a get-out-of-jail-free card to Nan Whaley, who dropped out of the mayor's race at the last minute and is now bilking people out of millions running for governor. Those tapes exist, and Nan doesn't sound good on them, and I've got a FOIA request into the feds for it. Is that harassing Democratic candidates? No. That's seeking the truth. That's truth to power. That's what this campaign is about. Somebody who will not be bullied. Somebody who will fight for you and stand up to these people in the back room that think that they have a better idea of who should run, why they should run, what they should do, who should do it, and who you work for if you're elected. That is unacceptable. So, precinct captains. Every 4 years, Democratic Party elects them. Every 4 years, Republican Party does it, but they do it different 2 years apart. But if you care, and here's something else that's a little secret. For a long time, the Democratic Party would fill a ton of empty seats with people who didn't live in the precincts with patronage people until the state party finally stepped in and said, no, that's not legal. So it stopped. I've been told because I haven't been endorsed in the primary, because I didn't want to be endorsed in the primary, because I believe that the primary is where you get endorsed by voters out in the public. I'm not eligible for their assistance, their help, or access to their data, or their mailing rates. So I'm going to have to fight them for that. It's okay. I'm used to fighting. I've been fighting City Hall for 30 plus years. Mike Turner had me arrested. He lost every court case. I got harassed by library guards. They lost. I've been fighting this community for a long time because I believe you deserve better. These precinct captains, they aren't doing their job. They're working for their bosses. It's time to pass a local Hatch Act and demand that anybody who gets paid from the public dollars cannot be the people that are picking who's on the board of elections and who. This is the other thing the political party does with the precinct captains. If a county official steps down or dies, the party appoints somebody to fill that seat. Party did it twice with Russ Joseph, who is an absolute political insider and really not a very nice person. And he lost both times, deservingly so. If it's because I backed John McManus over Russ, that's because John McManus was a Democrat who didn't get any support from the party when he ran against Jim Butler. And Jim Butler and I are friends. We're both veterans. The difference between me and them is that I believe in working for all Americans, not just Democrats, not Republicans. I include the people who just vote and even the people who don't vote. I care about what they have to say. And I can talk to Republicans. The video that's down below in the description about the precinct captains was me and Rob Scott, who started the Tea Party in Montgomery County and later worked for Trump, a person I find as despicable as they come, Trump. And Rob was all about Trump. But I can still talk to Rob. People in my party have a problem with that. That's why we have a problem in Washington. That's why Mike Turner doesn't talk to anybody, because he's afraid he might have to talk to Democrats. The reality is political parties need very much to be regulated the same way our public offices do, since they're basically in the Ohio Constitution. That means they should be having to conform and follow the Ohio Sunshine Laws. Not that those laws have any teeth, but so that they can stop doing these backroom deals and working deals to keep their friends and family in office. So, that's my rant for today. I can't see what time it is. I see it now. I really appreciate you sticking with me and watching. I hope you've learned. I hope Facebook had some viewers. I don't know if they did or not. This was our first attempt at that. If you're joining for Facebook the first time, we're going to try to do this again every day. We do it on YouTube, 4 o'clock on the nose. We come on, we live stream for 10 minutes to 20 minutes to half an hour. We take your questions. We share back and forth. I am trying to make sure that once I get to Congress, I'm ready to talk to you every day at the end of the day to tell you what happened in Congress, what I did, ask you questions, what you think, have polls, all the rest of it. I plan on being a lot more sophisticated, but I want to work for you, not for the base, not for anybody else. And Mark says, the Republicans hate me because I talked to Esrati. I've known Mark since college. I'm really, I'm glad you're here, Mark. The reality is, we need to change our political system to stop being one about us and them. We're all us. That's why we're the United States. Enough of this talk of splitting us apart, another civil war, of violence in the streets because Donald Trump was a criminal. We made a mistake. We put somebody in office. Actually, our system put somebody in office who never should have been fit to run. He had a ton of lawsuits against him. He never paid his bills. He's still not paying his bills. He's a despicable man. He says really atrocious things. And yet, he got elected president, proving in America anything is possible. I would like to see our country concentrate on making sure nobody goes to bed hungry, everybody has health care, that we have the best infrastructure in the world, because we have to be a first world power, not just a first world superpower. I really don't care if we've got the greatest ships and aircraft ever. The goal is not to have wars, not to make disabled veterans. Let's get this stuff straight, okay? So, I am thanking all of you here, and I really appreciate it. And we'll be here tomorrow at 4. If you got an idea for me to talk about tomorrow, put it in the comments. Be happy to do it tomorrow. And we'll be here at 4. And thank you so much. If you need more information, electisright.com. If you want to make a donation, /donate. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube or on Facebook. Make sure you've followed the campaign or friended it. And we hope to see more of you here every single day all the way up to November 8th. Thank you. Have a great day.